Hamas. Wow. That's a good one. You're what? You're Hamas?
Yes, we're all Hamas. Hey,
We are all Hamas, you pig! On the streets of New York, on the campuses of the Ivy Leagues, what is happening in America? I have so many questions. I'm just a poor legal immigrant to the United States. Maybe there's one man who can help us. He's rather smart, and his video content on YouTube is highly amusing. He's the host of the Rageaholic channel. He is the author of the newly released, I can't wait to get my hands on a copy, Ghost of the Badlands graphic novel. He's a great friend of the show. Razor Fist, welcome back to America First.
Yeah, we are all Hamas, Sebastian. We are give or take an A and an S, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, we are clearly all Hamas. You know when you get into a lift and there's some jingle music from the 1970s, or somebody whistles something from a soap opera of the 1980s, and you can't get this stinking tune out of your head for the next 3 days. I am with that on this issue, and I'm sorry to all my millions of listeners who must be bored of me after the last 2 weeks. All of the guests I have on my show, who I highly respect, I asked them the same question, and I'm just gonna play this old record for you, because I'm really curious what you think. Does this stuff that we have pro-jihadists, mostly white young women, pro-jihadists, being openly pro-jihadist all over America's educational institutions, is that a thing or is it a joke? How do we cope with it? How do we analyze it? What box do you put it in, Razor Fist?
Oh, you're not taking their domestic jihad seriously with the headscarves that they freshly ordered off of Amazon? No?
Well, look, it's when they're desperate for the hand delivered, for the provost to bring them their kale salad and the almond latte. It kind of challenges my concepts of irregular warfare.
A lot of things, yeah, I don't know. To me, there's a word for an occasion in which the Middle East erupts in sectarian homicide, and that word is weekday. So I try not to take too firm a stance on these issues. Can
we just pause here? Can we just pause here? Pause the B-roll. I can't remember for the life of me who it was, but somebody posted this or said this online. I love this woman who wanted her kale salad delivered, otherwise they're going to die of starvation, whose name is Johanna King-Slutsky. That's actually her real name, PhD student in Marxism. It's the guy behind him in the lovely little crop top showing his flat belly. Somebody said, I do like your outfit. Go and wear it in the Gaza, see how long you'd last. I just have to add that because it was such a good comment. But all right, we laugh. It is amusing because she says, we need humanitarian aid at a school that our parents spent $90,000 on every year. Put it into the broader context. Should we just see this as risible and laugh it off? Or does the fact that Minnesota has hundreds of thousands of uncommitted voters who don't want to vote for the incumbent, is this a thing or not?
First of all, I think he's actually rehearsing for the Saudi Arabian rooftop high dive competition in that outfit. No, look, you should read a little bit of something into it at the end of the day, because Palestine, as anyone who knows anything about anything knows, for decades has been a project of global communism. The PLO used to be Palestinian Communist Party, right? And you go back further and it just gets more and more socialist and communist the further back that you go. So there's a little something to this. We certainly have no shortage of Marxists on American university campuses. And so they're sympathetic with Palestine, not so much because they despise Jews or despise Israel, although I'm certain there's a component of that. It's more so that they're big fans of any project of global communism, and Palestine happens to be one of those and has been for a very, very long time.
But what is the logic? Because now, for some reason, I'd love to get your theory. For some peculiar reason, it is Politico that leaked the information that George Soros and Bill Gates and others are funding these protests, buying the lattes and the REI tents and everything else. What's the political logic of this? Because you can hate America and hate Israel, But domestically, I'm not sure this is a big winner 6 months before an election. So are they just hostages to their own vituperation, or what's going on here?
It could be something to the effect of they're kind of telling us more about their deficiencies than anything else, right? What are they having a problem doing? Mobilizing their base.
Yeah.
I think what we're witnessing right now is just how big of barking lunatics their base are. At the end of they're trying to mobilize their base, and this is the result. That's kind of what it tells me, honestly. When you look at this, and this kind of tracks in a number of other issues too, but this issue of Israel and Palestine, they're actually getting involved in this, and they think this is going to be a mobilizing issue. They are that tone deaf.
That's stunning. That's stunning.
Yeah.
And what should be the requisite response? I had a friend of mine, a colleague at Salem, who in his morning show in the first hour said, where are the fire hoses? Where are the fire hoses? And then in the second hour, I think his Hollywood friends kind of got on the blower and said, do you remember what happened in the South? And then my friend, who's a good guy, apologized and said, oh, fire hoses are wrong, and we shouldn't use that because it's a reminder of what happened during the civil rights era. It's like, hang on, it's a fire hose, okay? It's a fire hose. Yeah. If you're a criminal, just use it. So when you have a conservative governor, as we do in the Commonwealth of Virginia or in Texas, what is the right response without playing into the hands of the lunatic base of the left?
Well, it's interesting because some of these have been cracked down on, which amazed me because I figured police chiefs and such had just forgotten how to crack down on these kind of demonstrations, such as during the Summer of Love. It's interesting how they kind of relearned that. It's just like riding a bicycle. It's like a muscle. It just depends on how much you exercise it. Apparently, they just hadn't exercised it in a while. They can actually crack down on these when they like to. And that kind of, I think, is the way to approach it. You need to just give the police free rein to actually do what they have to do at the end of the day. But we know what was going on during the Summer of Love, right? Police chiefs and the Democratic Party police unions have tended to kind of be in bed together, and it was to their political advantage in 2020 not to crack down on some of this stuff. It's amazing now that Biden's in the White House, theoretically, now that he's running or shambling rather for another term, we now suddenly have rediscovered how to crack down on this sort of behavior. Amazing, isn't it? Quite uncanny.
And does it disappear with the end of the semester and everybody has to go back to their, homes with the, Olympic-sized pools and the maidservants? Or will this be a factor in the minds of voters on November 5th?
It could be, and here is the great curse of social media. They will keep it in people's minds. Now, whether the public, it's actually foremost in their mind, I mean, my goodness, the news cycle moves like greased lightning. Good luck keeping anything at the forefront of the public consciousness for more than 15.5 seconds. But still, right? It will be there. And probably that's the curse of social media, really.
Follow him on YouTube at the Rageaholic, on Twitter at RazorFist with a 0 for an O. The new book, the graphic novel, is The Ghost of the Badlands. Just hot off the presses. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America First One-on-One.
Mr. Trump, is Michael Cohen a liar? Are you going to testify?
I have a gag order as to that first question. As you know, they've taken away my constitutional rights, so I'm not allowed to answer that question. This has never happened in this country before. It's a ridiculous thing. It's a ridiculous case. I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. Take a look at Greg Jarrett this morning. He went on. Take a look at Andrew McCarthy or Jonathan Turley or Mark Levin. It's like they say there's no case here. And yet the judges gagged me, and I'm not allowed to talk about, I guess, his total conflict. The judge is totally It's totally conflicted, and you ought to take a look at it. And I'm not supposed to be talking about it. But I am allowed to say that the judge has a conflict that like nobody's ever had before. You ought to take a look at it. He's taken away my constitutional right to speak. I was in Miami this weekend. And reporters are asking me questions, the same questions like you're asking me, and I have to say I have a gag order, I can't speak about it. Never happened before, ever. Number one. Number two, it's a fake trial. They have no case. And it's been absolutely proven now. They have no case whatsoever. This is Alvin Bragg doing it for political reasons for Biden. This is a Biden trial. He's a crooked president.
President Trump, who is technically the leader of the opposition, unable to properly campaign, not simply because he has to be in a court in Manhattan every other day, but because the judge who donated to the Biden campaign and an anti-Trump PAC has imposed a gag order on the defendant, not the prosecution, but on the defendant. I have to ask you, Razor Fist, I find it impossible to categorize you, which is a good thing. I don't know whether you're a political commentator, a culture commentator, because you also bring in this fabulous historical perspective to your analyses. Let's use that for a moment. Can you put these events that we're witnessing into historic context? We know Lincoln and habeas corpus, but this idea that these are the Biden trials and a judge is actually daily undermining the capacity of the opposition leaders' capacity to actually campaign. Put this into the American historic context.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of it. It's kind of without precedent, even the lead up to the secession crisis, which ultimately led to the Civil War, wasn't handled quite this way. And it's interesting, like one of the big watchwords, I know Rush Limbaugh used to say this. I've always been a big proponent of this, and that is that you don't really listen to what they say, you watch what they do.
Yeah.
You know, the media and sort of the Democrat media complex can crow about how confident they are, but their actions are sort of telling another story beyond this trial, right? Like it just, the trial itself, and my goodness, turn on your television. At this point, primetime TV is just the negative space between increasingly desperate Biden ads, right? Like that's literally what it's become.
Right.
And they're getting more and more that way. I mean, the man has a bigger advertising budget than Ron Popeil at this point, but they're showing you really how confident they actually are. You wouldn't have this gag order, which I forget who the commentator was because I'd love to give them credit. It may well have been you, but somebody pointed out very early on, as soon as the gag order was broached, that, oh, this is just an excuse to get him to stop being able to campaign.
Right.
That's it. And unfortunately, a lot of people in his own party are complicit in this, as we have seen. Look, Biden is running, or as I said, shambling against exactly one party. Trump is running against both parties,
yes,
and their willing propaganda apparatuses in mainstream TV. Trump has more enemies than Batman, folks. And if you haven't accepted that at this point, you are not paying attention or conscious.
But interestingly, he's winning friends and fans in places that are making the establishment parties, plural, probably very, very worried. I can't stop playing this next cut. You'll tell me that I'm reading too much into it, but I just love it. Play it, Eric.
I love you, Trump! I love you, Trump!
We love Trump!
I love you, Trump!
We love Trump! We love Trump! We love Trump! We love Trump! We love Trump! We love Trump! We love Trump! We love
Harlem, black kid, starts a chant that the grown-ups carry forth. We love you, Trump. Then we have the week before that, he's in the Chick-fil-A, and the black college professor says, I don't care what they're going to do to me. I love you, Trump. Can I give you a hug? And then what was it last Thursday? The man who knows Manhattan better than anybody else on the planet, he walks from the Manhattan court and then delivers pizza to the fire station. And if you listen carefully, you can actually hear on the audio, one of the firefighters actually says, please save us. I know these are, anecdotes, but I think these are significant. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not going to, because when you really analyze it, what they've done is they propped up an even more favorable situation in some ways than 2016. Because part of Trump's appeal in 2016, as I think you would agree, was he somehow, even though he's a billionaire and super successful, curating out the yin yang, right?
Right.
He was somehow cast as the underdog, right?
Yeah,
He's probably more recognizable. Even then, he was more recognizable and had a higher Q rating than Hillary Clinton. And yet they found a way to make him be the underdog. Well, this is pretty much the only way he could reclaim that with some to spare, right?
But it's more than that. I mean, I agree with you, underdog or outsider, which is weird for the billionaire from Manhattan. But now, to leverage the Ghost from the Badlands genre or theme, he's the outlaw president, isn't he?
He is. You know who actually pointed this out is a guy I respect a lot, Victor Davis Hanson.
Oh my gosh, totally. Yes.
Sure, you're aware of him.
I told him the phrase "outlaw president" on my show when he was on.
He's so bang on. He was like, I think it's gonna be like the movie Shane, right? Where they need the guy to get out there and have his pistols clear leather one last time just so they can take care of those dirty banditos. But as soon as he does it, everyone's going to want him to go away, right? He's going to have to ride off into the sunset just having completed the job, right? This is an analogy that he's made a number of times, and I am in perfect accord with this. I think that's kind of the way that it's been. But the thing is, we're kind of in the Western movie buildup at this point, aren't we? Right? Yeah. The banditos have full run. They are rigging the game against everybody, and Gary Cooper's going around town asking for help, and everyone's saying, no, not so much. Not so much.
There's a great, I think it's like a 50-minute lecture he did for Hillsdale that you can find online where VDH talks about Trump as in the same category as Ajax and Patton, that they are the uncivilized hero and destroyer who comes in to save Western civilization when nobody else is capable. And once they do that, they just want to jettison them into the garbage because they think he's far too uncouth. But, the fact that they've made him more of the outsider, more of the outlaw than he was in 2016, you're absolutely right, is on the money. Please follow our friend at RazörFist on Twitter. Razor, the O is a 0. And whilst you're there, give me a follow as well on all the social media platforms. Just look for Seb Gorka or Sebastian Gorka on True Social, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Parler, Getter, Telegram. You can watch us, especially good for our Friday movie reviews, by downloading the Salem News Channel app. And for content written by me and direct access to me, go to my Substack. That's sebastiangorka.substack.com. That's my whole name is one word, sebastiangorka.substack.com. RazörFist, you're a very astute political commentator. I want to use you as a sounding board for something I was involved in. What was it, 3 weeks ago, I think? I was down at Mar-a-Lago for an event for Tom Homan for his new 911 Border Foundation. And we wanted to meet with the president beforehand. It was me, Tom Homan, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Kash Patel. And as is always the case, you have a plan about what you want to talk about with the president, which never survives contact with the president, because when he walks in the room, he's going to talk to you about what he wants to talk about. And he was just preparing to record his video on abortion. And he ran it past us. He had the script there. We helped him out. We added some things. And then it dropped after we got home on the next following Monday. And I don't get why there's so much hullabaloo in the conservative movement about this video, especially from those who say they're pro-life, as if the man who gave us 3 Supreme Court justices who struck down Roe v. Wade has to prove anything to them. And I still see this, now that my wife has a position running the GOP in our county in Virginia, I get these questions all the time. What do we say about abortion? The election's around the corner. Do conservatives run away from it, or do we talk about it? And I say what the president said. We've put it down to where it should be, subsidiarity, states decide. Oh, and then you flip the switch, and then you talk about what the Democrats say about abortion, about third trimester, Ralph Northam after it's born, just lunatic. So you say it's where it is. Oh, and by the way, then show the left up for who they are. What is the problem with Republicans in this issue, Razor?
the problem is they misportray what the president is. It's really a misunderstanding of what the president even is. You know, Donald Trump has his position on abortion, and the amazing thing is that personal position could be the most pro-abortion position ever, which for the record it's not. But he has abdicated responsibility as president, right, for actually setting that policy. He is being a constitutionalist. Yeah. He is saying the states get to decide this issue. It's masterful in a way, and no one should be surprised that kind of the 19th century progressive party that's really what rhinos are, right? These are kind of the holdovers from the old Lincoln regime. These were centralizers. These were top-down governance kind of people. So they don't really understand the idea of the states get to decide, because they generally are not in favor of allowing the states to decide a whole litany of issues. I completely agree with you, incidentally, because the position of the left is so extreme. It's like you don't even really need to make a firm stance, because the states are going to handle that anyways. I completely agree with that on like a strategic level. Look, myself, I'm about as anti-abortion as they come, and I don't oppose abortion because I don't know when life begins. I oppose abortion because I know exactly when death begins. Yeah. And that's my firm position. And incidentally, I'm in a state that's pretty anti-abortion. Now, there's some silly kind of measures that are not being put up to a vote right now that are attempting to overturn that, but still there's going to be an ongoing fight in the state of Arizona. High Catholic population, high Mormon population. I don't think in the long run that works out for Democrats.
But doesn't it seem as if every single day it's more and more likely that this will be the only thing they have come November?
It seems like that is already their operational strategy. Yeah. Right. And I don't know, you look at polls, and Republicans immediately after Roe v. Wade was appealed actually gained with women. So I'm not so sure this is the issue that's going to usher them to a nationwide sweep or even mitigate damage in races they are already not favored to win. Right. That I don't really see that happening. Apparently, like the most reliable polls, and this is a pretty common number, have it about 18% of the electorate consider abortion to be a major issue. And most of those, I would say all of those people, are basically already captured by them. So it's like these are already active voters. These are people who are already going to vote for Biden, come hell or high water.
Yeah. We're talking to RazörForce. He's the host of the superlative Rageaholic channel on YouTube. Subscribe today. You will not regret it. And if you're into rollicking good stories in the graphic format, the graphic novel format, Out the Ghost of the Badlands, check it out. I'm going to see where I can get hold of my copy, because I love that kind of thing. So, Razor, I've been doing a lot of interviews for foreign press, because I guess they realize who they think is going to win, and they're trying to get, what's it going to be like to have President Trump in office? And it's mind-boggling, because they say, is there going to be another January 6th, and is he going to leave NATO, and does he love Putin? And I say to them, these are seasoned national news agency representatives from Sweden, from the UK, and I say, were you alive when we were in the White House? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, can you remember those 4 years about what we actually did and how there were no wars and how the world was stable? Anyway, here's my challenge to you, or my question. I'm not worried about another January 6th. I'm concerned that conservatives haven't thought hard and deep about what happens if, God willing, we do our part and President Trump is reelected. What happens between November 5th and January 20th? I think the so-called summer of love under BLM and Antifa is going to look like a cakewalk. Your prognosis?
I think that would be, you notice we kind of have the election season variant of certain illnesses and kind of the election season riots. It's interesting. I remember years ago, you know how you can track trends on Google as far as searches.
Yes.
and someone looked up BLM, and it was election season spike, and then it goes down. Election season spike, and then it goes down. And it's been that way ever since BLM came around, right? So I think we can expect a momentary reprieve, and then election season will come around, and these same pressure groups will come out of the woodwork. Speaking of foreign residents, did you see Biden getting all boo-boo faced about foreign dignitaries meeting with Trump instead of him?
Yeah, it's I wonder why we have David Cameron going to Trump Tower, and then the former Japanese Prime Minister and the current president of Poland. I find that fascinating, don't you?
Right. No, it kind of casts those recent remarks by Biden that Japan is xenophobic in a little bit of a different light, doesn't it? Like he's a little bit bitter about it, which incidentally, if China is such a cloistered hermetic kingdom, how exactly did COVID get through the xenophobia force field? I've always wondered. But anyway, yeah, apparently having a border is xenophobic. Of course.
We want to have a borderless hemisphere, like Hillary Clinton said to those bankers back in 2014. What is the look? You know me, I'm a conservative. My father escaped a communist prison in 1956. But I would like it if we had two parties in this nation that were, quasi-normal. What is the hope for the Democrat Party? I mean, the Rhino Party has to be hunted down and replaced by America First candidates across, the nation. But I see no hope for the Democrat Party because there are no sane, sober people in charge. The Cuellar, the Californian, was just, booked for $600,000 worth of quote-unquote bribery, I guess, because he's a pro-life Democrat. Is the only hope for that party, for the left, if they are utterly, completely shattered in a general?
The problem with that, in previous discussions before some of the recent developments, I might have said yes, but honestly, they've taken a lot of the people who could have led the way in that effort. Tulsi Gabbard, she's now out of the party, right? Kirsten Sinema got primaried out. Now, I've pointed out many, many times exhaustively that she's a complete fraud and kind of a closet communist. But at the end of the day, she was going to be one of those figureheads, the so-called moderate Democrats. That's a dying breed. The blue dog Democrat is what they used to be called, the Joe Lieberman kind of Democrat. Those don't really exist anymore. You can see how Manchin is being treated. You can see what's happening to Kirsten Sinema. And Tulsi, who probably was the strongest person to lead a counter movement like that, is now no longer a Democrat. If that person is there, they're not on the scene right now.
So if they are defeated, is there even a scenario where they could get even more radical in defeat?
Possibly. I would say, if you want a historical analog, we're more likely looking at, and I actually pointed this out all the way back in 2016, that the Democratic Party were showing some signs, some of the same signs that the Whig Party showed. Yeah. Right before it died.
Explain what happened to the Whig Party before it died.
The Whig Party they became more ineffectual and unelectable in certain parts of the country, which is why Whigs wound up basically just either turning it. Most of the Whigs turned into Republicans in the North, and then Whigs in the South just kind of became Democrats or whatever because Republicans couldn't really get elected there. And actually, that's how we wound up with our current Democratic Party, because the Whigs were more statist. Democrats to that point had been conservatives, actually, small government states' rights conservatives. They wound up taking over the party after the Civil War. So there was no real partisan flip. It was just kind of a takeover by former Whigs. The Whigs still very much exist, but they're the Democratic Party. And it's kind of interesting if you look at it in that frame, because if these are death throes, then we might be witnessing kind of the second death of the Whig Party in a weird roundabout over 100 years late way.
Well, that's another case of history rhyming. We're talking to RazörForce, the host of the Rageaholic channel on YouTube, and his new publication is The Ghost of the Badlands graphic novel. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is the One-on-One coming to you from the ReliefFactor.com studios just outside the insalubrious, fetid, rank, malodorous, noisome, ghastly swamp that is Washington, D.C. So, given all the restraints on President Trump, the Biden trials, the state of the media, the lunatic base taking over the campuses in praise of Hamas jihadism, what advice, if you met with President Trump today, raise a fist, what would you say he needs to do given those constraints? Is there something he needs to do more of, less of? Is there somewhere he needs to campaign? And when it comes to messaging, what would you like to see? I'm curious.
He's got a tremendous advantage in that everybody already knows what Trump stands for. And it's funny because in a weird way, the left might have actually helped that to happen, right? Because they so exaggerate all of his positions that everyone already kind of knows what he's about. So in a weird way, he only has to half campaign, which is kind of to his advantage because now he's dealing with this kangaroo court, which is honestly probably a compliment given what this is. Several kangaroo courts in unison. Like they say justice is blind, and we all know what makes you go blind if you do too much of it. And that kind of tracks with some of the courts and judges that we're seeing right now. He needs, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like he needs a code word to get around gag orders.
Yeah, yes.
Right? Like it's like some kind of like viral marketing term or something.
Do you remember, you're younger than I am, but this stupid thing, the Thatcher government said Sinn Féin is the arm of the IRA, which is correct. And they said Jerry Adams cannot be shown speaking on BBC because he's a mouthpiece for terrorists. So what did the BBC, the state broadcaster, do? They showed Jerry Adams giving a press conference, and they had somebody voicing him over in an Irish accent. So it wasn't Jerry Adams' voice, but it was Jerry Adams' words. It was like living in Bizarro land. And I keep thinking we need to have, Shane Farris, the best Trump impersonator, just repeat President Trump's statements on his Twitter.
Or get like a famous actor who's a Trump fan, like Kevin Sorbo. Get Kevin Sorbo to voice over his voice. He'll do it in a hummingbird's heartbeat, people, and it'll be genius.
What about, is there any issue he needs to touch upon that he isn't, or does he need to go back to Harlem? Is there some place he needs to go?
Honestly, I don't think his positions are so well defined at this point. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Israel, Iran, Palestine, right? We can see that could erupt. That's a pressure cooker constantly. But honestly, that was pretty calm when he was president. So he's already kind of got that down, right? He can really just point to, hey, this was not happening when I was president, which is honestly, that can pretty much be his position for almost anything. At this point.
And I'm sure this has occurred to you, but I think I'm gonna have to write on this, that irony does not adequately cover the phenomena of the fact that the one issue that really got an outsider elected 2016, the border and illegal immigration, is now probably the issue that's most likely to get him reelected this time. The Democrats were so there's one thing, there's this kryptonite for us that helped him win last time. Don't touch the kryptonite again. And instead, they bring in a moon-sized piece of kryptonite for their own party by literally letting in 16 million illegals. And you think, these guys are evil SOBs. They hate America, but they're all so very stupid. Somebody who isn't is our good friend Razor Fist. God bless you, sir. Keep doing what you do. I can't wait to read The Ghost of the Badlands. Look for your own copy as well. Follow this man for free on YouTube at the Rageaholic, and follow him at Razor Fist on Twitter. Razor, the O is a 0. Don't ask me why. If you want to have him back in the White House, put the yard sign with his photograph, his booking photograph from Fulton County on it, on a T-shirt, on a mug with the phrase Trump 2024. Get yours today at sebgorkastore.com, and you can support him directly at donaldjtrump.com. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep your head on a swivel, watch your 6, hold the line, never give up, never give in, and stay frosty.